And we're live. Yes, we are. It's a Blender today, number 46. Welcome, everybody. Please give me a thumbs up if everything is okay. Audio, video. I'm going with a little bit of moody lighting today. I will see how this looks afterwards. Now everything looks great, but then you mess up one thing, and there is nothing to mess because Blender today is live. Blender 2.8 is going strong, still in beta, still getting new features. It's supposed to be features locked, but it gets a few additions. There are even additions in the modeling tools, in the bevel tools. Thank you for the thumbs up, everybody. And it's even getting some of the features that we thought we wouldn't get on the very first version of iteration of Blender 2.8 to 80, like the clipping border option in the viewport, where you could just clip an area and just like see through that. It was part of Blender 2.7, and due to the new engine, the Workbench engine and the overlays, it was kind of hard to get it in Blender 2.8. But there is no such thing as hard for developers such as Campbell Barton, because he managed to get it in. It's in now. It's not available for every single object yet, object type, but it's there. So it's there for meshes and in edit mode. So it's in the most of the places where you would need it, and it's such a great news. I would miss that tool a lot. So hello Darnex, my old friend. Is it dark? Is it a bit too dark? Do I need my IKEA little boy here just to help out? No, maybe not. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's move this thing here. Let's open the main screen here. And before jumping to this, to the actual new, look at how nice the lighting here. How you guys look up there, awesome. Before jumping to that, I wanted to do a little a little advertisement, if you allow me. It's not an advertisement because it's gonna be on the Blender on the Blender YouTube channel, but for now it's on the Blender the Blender Cloud. So this is a new training that is coming for Grease Pencil. So if I'm gonna go full screen, if you haven't seen this video, it's amazing. It covers everything from like the very beginnings of Grease Pencil, the new primitive objects, the onion skinning animation, scaling, how to color everything in, how to add compositing. You can even do some compositing in, and animation, of course, because it's all about animating. So it's very exciting. It's already available for Blender Cloud subscribers, and it will be eventually uploaded to the YouTube channels if you can't afford Blender Cloud. But remember, the Blender Cloud is what keeps also development happening. So consider joining. If not, just wait and it will come. It's part of the Blender Fundamentals. It's the Blender Fundamentals. You probably heard of it. It's already a playlist where you can learn. If you're watching this, you're probably not a beginner, but it covers pretty much everything in very small parts, just to go like starting from scratch. So there will be a new Blender Fundamentals 2.8 coming. Not dates yet, but at least the Grease Pencil part is there. The one that it will be on the cloud, it's the Fundamentals, so that's the first part, and that one also will be available online on the YouTube channel. But there's a second part which is gonna be advanced, and that is the if you wanna check it out quickly on the Blender Cloud, I think the first this one and the next this one is also available for free. They're for everyone, but then you can see animation template, drawing modes, 2D animation, modifiers, VFX, all kinds of stuff. There will be a more advanced training later, only for the cloud. So move on. But one of the things that helps the Blender Cloud actually is like some of the features that get added and happen to be added by the Blender Institute is actually covered by the Blender Cloud, such as there is a okay, sorry. It started without me. Okay, is everything okay here? YouTube's telling me that it's bad, that the connection is bad. I hope not. So there are a few updates that happen in the Blender Institute, such as Alembic. So Alembic is one of the industry standards formats for passing data around. So from one software to the other, you export, import, and Blender 2.8 is it has a better Alembic support than in the past. In the last few days, got a major, I think it sounds like a small thing, but it's pretty big. It's curve support. So curves, an option for curves to be exported as meshes. So for example, in the Spring Open Movie project, there was a bunch of grass and there are leaves and stuff going on. And this is what I did this week, by the way. Yeah, if you haven't seen the last episode of Blender Today, I mentioned that I joined the Spring team at the Blender Animation Studio. So basically I moved from working downstairs to working upstairs. So it's not a big, but for example, in the, here, has anyone sound? Oh no, is sound lost? Okay, I hope it is here. Yes. So all these objects here that you can see is it's not a spoiler, almost, but all these animations, for example, they're exported as Alembic files, and they are, so we are actually using Alembic in production as caches. So you animate all in the individual files, and then you export them as an Alembic cache, and then you put it on. You can duplicate it, and it's so much faster to animate because there's no rigs. Basically, everything is just meshes. So the fact that now the curves it's possible to export them as a mesh, then it's such a big thing. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite big. Also for nerves. So if there's anybody still using nerves, then you can now export them to Alembic. What else? Modeling. Yes, modeling. I think I can just show this one for now. It's in the release notes. So the developers are not only awesome enough to develop the features, but also enough to actually write documentation for whatever they're making. So I think this should be left to the artists. So if there is a developer that makes something awesome for you, if you're an artist, why not just making a little piece of art to show it off? Because, for example, here, this is very awesome. It's bevel modifier and tool meter. I hope that's how you say it. Patterns. So basically, there are 3 types of patterns that you can use for the for bevel. So you can switch between these 3. And yes, it looks very clear in a cube, in a subdivided cube, but wouldn't it be looking awesome if you have like an awesome robot or I don't know, a building or something like that? If you're an artist and you like what the guys are making, just get in touch with them and then post your artwork, because it's gonna be with a credit. So and then we add some color to the documentation. That will be awesome. NLA, yes, the nonlinear animation editor, it's getting improved. Before moving forward, the questions for today, they're on Blender Today. If you go to Blender Today, there should be a thread that I just made. And here, Blender Today 46, there is already 21 questions. Okay, cool. Thank you. This is where you're gonna leave the questions. So go to Blender Today and it should be number 46 up here. Moving on, the NLA got improved. Again, every week the NLA is getting improvements. So it means that finally the nonlinear animation editor that has been around for decades is now getting some actual use in 2.8. Because in 2.7 and before it was there, but the whole point of the NLA was to layer animations, actions, and then you can insert keyframes, and then it's supposed to key the addition of or the multiplication or whatever, how you mix them up, the result of that, those actions. And it wasn't really doing a good job in 2.7 and prior to that, but now it is in 2.8. So go use it and report, because Alexander Gavrilov is on fire. He's coding like a boss. All right, Windows users. If you're a Windows user and you have a tablet, then Blender 2.8 is gonna work with it now. It's gonna work with the Windows Ink, which I'm not really familiar with what it is, but I think it's so you don't need drivers for certain kinds of softwares or tablets, I think. I'm not really familiar with it, but now Blender works with it, so support for Windows Ink. I think it's for the Surface or for other tablets that use those drivers, like the precision for the trackpad and that kind of stuff. Not very familiar with it. Clipping, yes, clipping is back, and I missed it so much. So now, for those that didn't know, I don't know why it's super slow. I think it's because I'm streaming, and it's the first time that I'm actually full HD. I don't know if you noticed, but how crispy. You can now see all my teenage pimples in full HD. In Blender 2.8, there was one feature that was missing a lot, that is clipping. So clipping basically just allows you to see, to like draw a rectangle and then see only that. Whatever is on the sides, it's gonna get clipped. So if you were, for example, I happen to have Kodo here. So if you have a character and you wanted to like see the I don't know, the neck, the head here only, but then you had other objects, or you had the legs, and then you had to cut the legs, and it will be a nightmare. And if you're a vegetarian, you wouldn't do that. So if you draw a rectangle with ALT+B, the same shortcut that it was in 2.7, you can now clip that, and this is not actually changing your model or anything. On the shading, everything is the same. It's now able to see through. This only works for now in the teenage. Now I'm kind of a teenager. I'm 32, so I'm in the lower end of the for how no teen is for 10, right? I learned that like not long ago, and I've been speaking English for like a decade now, more than that. This option for Alt+B, for the clipping, is only available for the time being in when you're in solid mode or workbench, and when you're in wireframe. So I think it doesn't work still for LookDev, or yeah, it doesn't work for LookDev or for the render preview. But for the rest, it should work just fine. So I hope I'm not killing my computer with this. I'm still working. Awesome. So let's move on. Thank you, Campbell. I don't know if you watched this stuff, but thank you. Alt+B was surely thoroughly missed. There are a few words in English language that I don't even know how to say it, but I like this how they sound, so I try to to say it. Deleting many objects have been optimized. So the deletion process in Blender apparently was very slow. And yes, I mean, if you have too many objects, I think I was just getting used to it, but it seems to be much faster now. It's not enabled yet by default. You have to enter a debug value to 666, because I guess it's evil to delete stuff. So what is this debug value? You might have seen it somewhere, sometimes, that if you use debug value whatever, then you have specific features. So for example, if you want to try these features that are hidden under a value, it's a debug menu. So you just search for debug, and then you can choose in this slider you can add a number. So basically you set it to whatever, and then nothing happened. Maybe there's one hidden in 2. There was one in 256, I think, for debugging. There's not even there anymore, because there was one that it was possible to see it when you were in Eevee, and it will show you like nice stats and stuff, but I think it's not enabled anymore. No, it's not enabled anymore. And now this ugly test that I was doing, it's got even uglier. But yeah, with the debug menu you can enable and disable settings very quickly. And not settings, but like experimental features. The developers basically, they add an if. So if debug one random number, then they try something new, and then they can tell users, for example, like, hey, I think I fixed your problem, try with debug blah blah blah. So that's why it's there. I think I've been talking way too much without a sip of my favorite. Okay, let's put the llama on the here. Let's put someone pretty on the street. There you go. It's I'm not having a beer today. I forgot. I was so excited about trying this new lighting. I completely forgot about the drink. More features. Alembic. Yes, I already mentioned that. Thank you, Sivren Stuvel. Our very own Sivren. Our very own doctor. Preferences having further redesigned. So in the last week's episode, I mentioned the improvements that were done to the user preferences. So the user preferences, it's been a mess. I already mentioned this in the past in the last video that in 2.7 it really is a mix of like all kinds of features mixed up with like the sections versus labels, and it was really hard to, like, once you knew where things were, it's okay, you kind of guess it, but it was just so much. Like fonts next to the OpenGL lights doesn't really make any sense, or the compute device next to the color picker. What does the color picker have to do with the CUDA device, right? So the way this looks was next to, anyway, it was a mess. So in 2.8 there is a redesign that has happened for the last few weeks, and the last iteration, the last improvement, is about splitting the sections further. So now there is, I think it's a very nice improvement. There is an interface, so you know that everything related to the interface, such as the color picker, or the position of the headers and region overlap, corner splitting. Oh yeah, that's the new name for the little widgets on the corners. So Pablo, preferences appear behind the main window. What do you mean? It's not showing up? Yeah, it is showing up, I think. Okay, if it doesn't show up, I can just change it and be an editor. So preferences, here we go. So now, because now the preferences are also part of the editor, so now they can be shown. They can be shown here, and it was possible to show them before. By the way, it was just in 2.7, it was just removed temporarily, and now it's back. So I think I'm just gonna use the other one. I prefer the window. The add-ons, they have their own section. The search, you can search and filter by section. I really like it, this new design that it was done recently by Brecht. Editing, lights. The light editor, it's a tough one to explain. I already explained it once. If you have any issue, let me know. Oh, in full screen. So when you're in full screen, it appears in the behind. Interesting. So what if, let's go full screen, and then it works fine here. I'm actually full screen here. What if I'm even more full screen, the real full screen? And then I go preferences, it still shows up here. Maybe I'm using Ubuntu GNOME, like the GNOME browser. Not browser, window manager thingy. So it seems to work. Maybe it's a Mac specific or Windows specific issue, but you should report it because it should show up in the front. My favorite part is that the input navigation, the key map, everything is in the same place. So it's much better. The system stuff, for cycles, everything seems to be here. Save and load. This, I think, is gonna help some people find out that actually, because Blender doesn't just crashes and leaves you all high and dry. It's actually saving files every 2 minutes by default, which is amazing. I thought it was 5, and it was lowered to 2. The most common thing I read sometimes on Twitter is like, oh, Blender crashed and just lost, or because Blender didn't ask me to quit, and then I just lost hours of work. And it's a pity that they don't know that it's actually saved. Blender, maybe when you open next time, it should tell you like, hey, there was a file that's kind of annoying, but maybe it would help because it always saves your files. You will never lose any work with Blender unless it gets corrupted because the hard drive is nuts or something. But you will very rarely lose any data. Blender saves on your temporary folder, temp folder. It will save a version, a quit.blend. When you quit Blender, it will save that version, whatever you had it open as quit. And then it will save every 2 minutes, like we just saw, a blend file with the name of your current blend file. And if you didn't save it, I can just show you actually. Why am I even talking without showing? So my temp folder is in /tmp, and here we can see I have a quit.blend, then I have Kodo Eevee because that one was saved. Depto is a it's a blend file that I've been working on, and 3345 is a blend file that I worked on but I didn't save. So it saves with the number of the ID, I think, of the process that I have it. So it is recovering actually, and I think from within Blender you can just access by going to File, Recover Autosave, or Recover Last Session. So the last session will open the quit.blend, which is the same, and Recover Autosave is gonna open your temp folder and then see it there. So the next time you think you lost your work, check out the temp folder. It might be there. I think on Linux, or at least on Ubuntu, when you reboot, then the temp folder gets wiped out. But it's not on every, I think on Windows it doesn't, or at least it was in Windows XP experience. And that's about it with the main development topics. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, the grid. So this is what I have on my list of the things that I save every week. Oh, physically based defaults for Eevee. Yes. So this is nowhere here. Actually, it's not on the list, but it was added recently. There is a thread about that somebody made about how the bloom settings for Eevee were not physically correct. So they were a bit, it would just look like blurry and it wouldn't look very nice. But now the defaults were changed. So now the bloom settings should look out of the box much better. And I can't remember, let's see if I can find it, because it was very nice. Here, dev talk. Here, this is awesome. Look. The discussion has been going on for a while, apparently, and look at this beautiful list of feedback, back and forth, and tweaking, and so much love for the tool. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. Oh, there is a patch for review that it was sent, and here is. So you see, this is amazing. That's why I love the Blender community. Somebody made a thread and then they start discussing. They post their screenshots and they talk about it. They find all the settings, and then somebody makes a little patch, and in a little bit it gets added. So in a matter of days. Awesome. Then another setting. So now, by long story short, Eevee Bloom is gonna look awesomer. Some of the other things that were fixed. Oh, the Python API memory leak. So remember I mentioned last episode that the animation nodes now has support for real-time updates when working with audio files, with the sound files. Apparently there is something new in the Blender API in 2.8 that allows you to just check for changes constantly, basically. And that was working, but it had a little memory leak. So it would fill in all your memory and it wouldn't free it ever. And it was not the best. So if you were trying the animation nodes, by the way, which is animation nodes Blender, it's on GitHub from Jack. And you can see in the last, no, must be in a different template, 2.8. So here you can see in the commits, 5,000 commits. Amazing. So add support for sounds, for packed sounds, add a new sound system. Awesome. Anyway, if you were trying it out with the new sounds stuff, then try again, because it's much better. It was actually a fix in Blender itself, in Autospace, in the library that manages all the audio stuff in Blender. And also it fixes an issue that apparently some people were having when the Blender video sequence editor audio would break if you remove and insert your headphones. Apparently I didn't try that one. The what else? Oh, the grid on the viewport is now much more precise. So especially it had a few issues when changing the clip start and the clip end. So you should be much more precise now. And if you had any issues with like the grid not showing up correctly, then try again, because Clement has been hard at work. And that concludes, exactly 30 minutes past 9, the news for today, I think. Methinks. Otherwise you will see it next week. Time for questions. Yes. Let's now I should have a music for when it's time for questions. Like, I don't know, what can I be? I have a few lists here, like Inception, but no. Like no, it's time for questions. So yay. No, okay, questions. Where are the questions? Here, let's see how many. 36 questions. Not bad. Did you know that Blender today has a full screen button? The toggle full screen, I think it was F. Yeah, it's the F key. I added that, and only now I'm using it. So let's make this a bit bigger, and let's ask what people think. Did Pablo always have an earring? Yes, I had two actually. I have one here that is red and one here that is black. I like black and red. I don't know if you notice. I don't know. They go well together. And I also had an ear and like a ring up here when I was younger, when I moved to Buenos Aires as a rebel 18-year-old. Anyway, I removed it. It's just, it's not for me. Hey Pablo, says Anton and Boy. The current Eevee toolset is so limited compared to other software like Modo or Unfold. Are there any plans on improving Eevee workflow inside Blender 2.80? Is really that limited? Blender used to be like praised for its Eevee tools. There are inside of Blender 2.80 not so many, because 280 should be feature locked, but as you can see, some features manage to slip through. But the tool itself, I don't know of any improvements. There are a few experiments that have been done for better unpacking, and also the UDIM support. It should be there. The code is supposed to be ready, but hasn't been committed yet. It's under review, basically. So 09201225 asks or says, hello Pablo, do we have any news about support for RTX cards, RT cores, real tracing cores, ray tracing core, real optics for cycles, or Eevee? Well, wow, there is already an add-on with denoising for cycle. Yeah, I know. I think that one is E-cycles. Is that the one? I haven't tried that one, but no, there is currently no support as of today. There are people working on it that I can say, or at least suggest, because I can't really ensure that it's happening. I mean, I'm just following on Twitter what happens on Twitter. And the RTX cards, they work just as good at the moment, just as good as the GTX card. Of course, faster because they're better. But the I have at the Blender Studio, which I've been working on stuff. I've been rendering with an RTX card, and it doesn't, of course, doesn't make use of all the cool ray tracing stuff, but at least it works, and like it works super fast. It's a Quadro with like 24 gigs of RAM. It's just insane. But yeah, it works. But probably not the answer you were looking for, like more specific about ray tracing, especially for Eevee. Borsberry asks, hi Pablo, I think you can repeat the dynamic pivot from Maya or soft image in Blender. Just use the 3D cursor as a pivot and add a mode in which the cursor moves to the center of the selection with each new selection. I have to go back to that question. So just use the 3D cursor as a pivot, yeah, that we can do, and add a mode in which the cursor moves to the center of the selection with each new selection, like automatically moves to the, yeah, that is, that could be an add-on actually, yeah, definitely. Said PK Go says, will Eevee be able to cast HDRI shadows? Well, with not for reals, but there are ways to fake that. There are engines that basically, it could be implemented because there are engines, and actually that's something we had in mind during the code quest. It was it was fake, it was a cheat. There is basically a way to detect the brightest point on your HDR image and then basically just stack a sun lamp there and project a shadow from there. So it should be possible, maybe even with an add-on, but it's not planned as far as I know for now, for the time being, because it will be a hack that you can do anyway. So not for the time being. But why not? Maybe with ray tracing is faster and could be done. SinoGG says, Sinog, will we have the possibility to apply modifiers, auto smooth, etc. on multiple selected objects or change their properties values all at once? It is slow to do it one by one, especially when turning on auto smooth with 180 to get the right shading. Well, actually that's already possible, but the thing is that it's not enabled by default because it's kind of obscure, and it can be, and it doesn't work for every option in Blender. So that's the main issue. It's actually, we at the studio when we were working on the code quest, we thought about making it the default behavior. For example, if I have these objects, I can enable, for example, this, you can see the faces of the objects, very square here, very flat shaded. So if you add auto smooth, for example, here, it will, now you have to make it smooth. So smooth. So if I make all of this smooth, then auto smooth, for example, I just applied it to this. If I select multiple objects and then I hit auto smooth, it will only affect the active one. This is the issue. There is a way to affect all the objects that you have selected. If you hold Alt and then click, it will be applied to, the change will be applied to all the selected objects. So it's actually there. The reason why this is not enabled by default is because it doesn't really work with every setting in Blender. You have, for example, adding a shape key. I don't even know, I don't think this one is gonna work, but you Alt and then, now you see, it didn't. I hold Alt and click, and then it only added it to the active one because it's a different kind of operator. It's not a setting, it's an operator. So because it's not really reliable to, like, it's not really not reliable, it's not consistent, it's better maybe not to have that. So yeah, it is there, it's kind of hidden and it's awesome but it's not consistent, so that's why it's not default. We need a better system for that. Like, for example, now we can enter edit mode of multiple objects, we can paint, and we can sculpt through multiple objects at the same time. So, well, no, not yet the sculpting, but the vertex paint should, no. Which one? Edit mode we can. UV editing we can do a UV unwrap of multiple objects. So there are many features that can be, but it's not there yet. So I'm hoping for the future, 2.9, maybe 2.3.0, maybe. That's a big change. So you see, there are still many reasons to hope for a 3.0. Next, why is Control left click for cutting in the shader editor not working? I really miss this one. I have to talk with the developers. What's the deal? When it's gonna come back and how it's gonna come back? Because the current behavior is that you If you want to cut this, Shift right click does that. Control right click, Alt, Control Shift. Yeah, Control and the line, but there you go. Control and the line, but it depends. So wait. Alt right click. No, Alt is doing that. Wait, I just Shift and then Control. There you go. Control right click. It's not. Oh yeah, it's not left click, it's right click. But wait, am I using the default factory settings? Because I haven't. Here, let's go here. So Control left click to cut, and Control, sorry, Alt. Okay, no Alt. Shift right click, drag to make a connector, like a socket, and then Shift right click to Control right click to cut. I have to remember them, but yeah, there could be better options for that. Very a bit more obvious. For example, it took me a while to figure out that it was Shift right click to set the 3D cursor in the viewport with the new left click select, which I like it, but I'm considering going back to right click select. Personally, I wanted to give left click select a try because I'm part of the UI team, so I should see how, and I should work with Blender how it is for by default. But I think I'm gonna switch back to right click select. It's just left click select is just too slow. Next, for me at least, the fact that you select things and you apply things and you click on things and you everything with the same, it's just tiring and not very healthy for my hand. Next, will the wireframes go to the quality it was before? Right now they're unusable. To the quality, what are we talking about quality? Because the wireframes at the moment, they are lacking optimizations. They feel very sluggish because they are slow at the moment. So there will be improvements on speed and everything, but what do you mean by quality itself? The next, U.Ninja says, what about baking? Can we add bake displacement and alpha options to Cycles Baker since internal is gone? Also, maybe some more options like curvature, etc. About the new features, you'll have to ask the community about that. You have here the right click select. I bet there is a proposal for that already, but the about the baking displacement, it should come back because it's missing, but I haven't heard any developer jumping into trying to get it done. But maybe that's one of the features, like the same with clipping border, that it wasn't really gonna be on 2.80 and now it is. So I bet the Cycles option to bake displacements is gonna come back. Another question by Lapisi says, I guess this should be a paper cut, but the light icon in scene changing based on what is selected is beyond distracting and disorienting. Yes, I hate it. I looked at the code a couple times, maybe one time, and I couldn't find it very quickly, so I gave up and I will let it to the developers to change it. If you're a developer or if you want to get into Blender development, just give it a try. If you need more information, go to code.blender.org, get involved in Blender development. You click on it, you'll see the IRC channels, the forums, the how to commit, how everything. So how to submit patches, everything is there. So it sounds like an easy task. If you're into or want to get involved in Blender development, just look at it. Basically, the issue that we are describing is that the lamp icon here on the sidebar, it changes depending on what you have. So depending on the changes depending on the type of lamp. So if you have a sun lamp spot area, it changes shape. Some may see it as a feature, some may see it as a bug, some see it as a I don't know, because it doesn't really happen with other kind of objects like metaballs. When you change the shapes of them, they don't yeah, they stay the same, so they should also stay the same. For example, light, like not light but force fields, they're not changing shape because they are different type, they are always the same type. So maybe you can look at the code for that. What language is Blender coded in? C. It's coded in C, C++, and Python. Left click should be the standard. If you use other software, it's easier to memorize. Yeah, it is easier, but if you don't use other software, then I think right click select is much more. It is, the left click select is the default. There is no change, that's the way it is. I'm just more familiar, and I think after trying left click select for now, I don't know, a week, a whole week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know, for a while I've been trying left click select. Now I'm doing it full time, 8-9 hours a day, full time using left click select for a week, and I think I'm gonna go back because it just feels slow. It feels slow because you can't really trust what you're doing. You're selecting something, or you actually like accepting a button on the screen. It's silly to use the same key for both, the same click for both. Let's see. Dorian says, hello Pablo, experienced some selecting issues. Sometimes some part of the mesh refused to be selected. I have this quite often. Am I the only one? I think you're not the only one. I had some issues selecting objects inside of other objects, and this has been reported already, but basically sometimes you can select, but for example, you see now, so you select something out and then you click again and then you click again, and you have to click the second time. So I select the here and then click, nothing, click again, it selects it. So it's a work in progress. It depends on the size on which side you are, but getting selection right is very tricky. I advise you to use Alt click, where you can actually see what you're selecting. So it will bring this menu with all the objects underneath the mouse click where you clicked, and it will just be easier to find your objects. Let's drink a bit more tea. Will you remove the border in Blender? What do you mean the border? The border, window border? This one up here? Will be nice, but it's just hard to get it right on every platform. Blender is multi-platform, remember. So does Grease Pencil create auto in-betweens? Yes, it does. Not automatically. You have to run it would be very annoying if it would create them all the time automatically. So what it does, it creates an interpolation between two poses. So if for example, let's start a new 2D animation. So let's say I have my little ball down here, amazing, and another one up here, and another one down here. So this is very, like, you wouldn't do this, of course. You would just add a keyframe manually there. But if you're lazy, what you can do is just stay like in between those two frames, and then you can go to strokes, interpolate, and then you can interpolate, you can sequence, for example, and then it will make a sequence of keys in between the two keyframes that you had. There is also a interpolate option where you can, once you click it, you can move the mouse to the left or to the right, and it will you can make it like closer to whatever pose you had. And I had a much better example actually for this, which I should use because it's just better. G Pencil, the bouncing ball. This is a beautiful example. I love this guy. So for example, if I want to have a keyframe here between these two poses, and I want to make it like slow down up here, I will go like 1 frame less and just interpolate, and it will let me choose for the active layer, by the way. So for example, if I have the active layer here and then strokes interpolate, then I can, oh, that's very interesting. So it can fail. Basically, it seems to be like the mesh was twisted halfway. So, oh no, it got broken. Let's try the other one. Sequence. Oh, it seems like the way it was animated, it was like flipping one frame after the other. So maybe that's why it messed up. But if you start from scratch using it on every frame that you draw, then it should be fine. It should go fine. If you want to learn more, you can go to Blender Cloud and check out the Grease Pencil Fundamentals, or try it, or no, there are tutorials online, I bet. And there is a video that I was published on the Blender Foundation YouTube channel, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it was somewhere here, that had the working, like one of the first Grease Pencil. Oh no, it's in another channel. It's on Blender Cloud channel, if I'm not wrong. Next question. Let's go on because it's already 10 minutes. We're 10 minutes away. So let's, where was I? Here. Gabriel Borges Bonifacio. On 2.8, will there be a anti-aliasing option? Because the overlays are anti-alias and my PC doesn't run well 2.8 and other stuff. Well, you have a quality setting that you can disable. Preferences, you can change interface. Well, text rendering, you can disable anti-aliasing for that if you're not into it. And you should be able to also disable anti-aliasing like globally. Can't find it right now because everything changed. But you should be able to change it. Here, Grease Pencil multisample. Viewport quality, down. Multisample, no multisample, Grease Pencil even, no multisample, and then you can lower it here. It's in the viewport setting, of course, because it's a viewport thing. It makes sense. We can't find them now, but it makes sense. Next, Kameha. So the Dragon Ball reference. So Kakaroto says, hello Pablo, you guys are doing great job. Thank you. I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking to a camera. I was just wondering if in terms of user experience, when we launch a render, why the rendering process progress window adopts the image size? Because for really big sizes, it overflows the screen. Can we make it half of the screen or so? Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. If you have a full HD screen and you're rendering 4K, it will make it 4K. It should probably be smarter. Maybe that's a nice paper cut that we can, that it could be published to the Dev Talk forums as a suggestion. For the time being, I will suggest you to not render on a new window, but render on, for example, full screen or the image editor. If you render full screen, when you press F12, it will replace everything with the editor. And there you can just adjust the size, like the zoom to whatever you want. And the next time it should remember the zoom that you had. So if you're gonna open it full screen anyway, then why not just open it inside of Blender? And then you can just press escape and then it goes back to the size, the window that you had. Or you can also press back to previous and it should, let's try, it should continue rendering. So let's make it there, cycles, render, and then if I press back to previous, yeah, it's still rendering, as you can tell here, down here. And oh, thank you, Steve McDonald. Oh, and not even a question. Well, thank you very much. This is very kind of you. Oh yeah, there is a, no, there is no question. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The render is still going actually, but we can't really see it. If you go to rendering workspace, then you can see how the render is progressing, but you can just continue working in Blender. You can just do whatever you want. There was a video that popped up on my feed for some reason where like here, the render keeps going and then you can continue modeling. So there was a video that popped up on like some Cinema 4D using rest shift or something like that, and it was funny because people were like the guy there in the video was very amazed about being able to like move in the viewport, and then a separate window was being with the rest shift was updating, but it wasn't real time. You had to like move Cinema 4D in the background in a different window and then wait for rest shift. So it was like, what's so special? I mean, we had cycles for a while now, and apparently it is special because not everybody has that. I don't have experience with other software, that's why I can't. For me, it sounds like, of course it's gonna rotate with the view, but it's funny when you see some with perspective. Ostap Blender 2020 said, any news about multi-resolution and subdivision optimization? Well, the multi-res modifier has been optimized a lot this last week. There have been a lot of commits regarding not only optimization, but mainly on fixing issues like the multi-res modifiers using OpenSubdiv, and there are many things that are not there, that were not there yet, especially when sculpting. If you were sculpting in a lower level and then you go up a level or you go down, those changes have to propagate and doesn't always end up in a perfect mesh. Sometimes there will be like crazy spikes coming out. This was reported by Julian, one of the artists at the Blender Animation Studio, and it's been solved. And you can see it in the, well, you can see you can read the commit logs and you will find it. It's they were by Sergey. Oh, I mean BF committers, no BF Blender CVS. There you go, Blender CVS, January, by author, and then if you just search for Sergey, here it's been doing like multi-res modifier, not slow modifier, stack on transform, subdivision cleanup. Like if you search for multi-res, there is like a bunch of cleanups, optimization, corrections, and it's just all this is, by the way, this is all the changes, this whole list, it's only January 2019. January 2019, and all of this has happened in the official branch of Blender 2.8. That's not even, well, in other branches, but like the NPR, like the cycles, but most of it is in the master branch. That is insane. If you want to keep this going, by the way, since while we are at it, oh, by the way, I can update Visual Studio and Spotify. Awesome. By the way, Spotify it's very on Linux is very keeping up to date. So props to Spotify. The putting resources in open source software. The development fund, that's what I wanted to talk about while saving for another question. We're so close to the 25,000, which is gonna allow Blender Foundation to hire 5 developers to work full-time, mainly bringing 2.8 up to speed, but also amazing stuff such as the beginning of what is everything nodes. That is the future. Everything is a node in the future, but you gotta start somewhere. So there is the documentation that has been written by Jacques-Luc, the main developer working on it, and it's just gonna be it's just gonna be amazing. The first iteration should be about the modifier stack, getting that into the into everything nodes, and then go one by one. The next question, Iceman 500. Hi Pablo, is dynamic paint to image texture broken? I haven't tested it yet. I will have to get back to you, I'm not sure. The Phobos says, any chance we'll see a proper radial array implemented in Blender? There is none at the moment, so I bet there will be at some time. I hope it will be eventually. It sounds like a nice small feature that any new developer could add. Will Blender 2.8 get the game engine? No. Oh, that's evil. Blender 2.8 is not gonna get the Blender game engine, it's gonna get the interactive mode, which is a way to interact real time with your objects, with your characters, with anything via a logic editor with nodes. So it's part of the program. It's not 280, not 281, I guess, but somewhere in the horizon. There is already money granted for that. If you see here the grants, there is a grant for design and implementation of the new real-time viewport editing and the new logic editor. So we have to, we should update this page and then add what's the status of things so far. But as you can see, Chuck Luke working on everything node is already is part of the development fund grants. And we're getting close to the end. So I'm gonna read 5 more questions. I think I jumped one of this. Here, this one. Digislav says, hi Pablo, tell us something about Pablo Dobarro patches, so more people could hear about it, and maybe the devs are thinking about his work. Thanks for the amazing streams. Thank you for watching it. So Pablo Dobarro is a developer, no, it's an artist that also happens to code. And it seems to be really good at it because he's improving the tools that he's using for making artwork. And of course, in screenshots, everything looks great, but the code has to go through a process of evaluation. It has to be it has to be like tested or just it has to fit with the rest of Blender. So for that, there are code reviews, and for that there is a process. And the patches by Pablo have been receiving a lot of attention, especially from people, from the users. There are a few, I can't find here the patch number, but you can see how good of an artist he is, and now how he's getting involved with coding, with developers, with developing. So in here, I think at some point he shares the patch to it. But basically the patches include the brush following the normals of the mesh as you're sculpting, which I think he posted it somewhere here. And the patch, as you can see here, by the number of hearts and thumbs up and fire and scary fish icons, you can see here that he's getting a lot of support by the community. So let's make some noise. Let's try to get this into Blender. It's not only about pretty pictures, it's also that the code has to be up to the quality of the rest of the code in Blender. So the more developers are into this, for example, Charlie Jolie is another developer that has been around for a while, but recently he started adding some patches for Grease Pencil, and now he's actually working next to Antonio Vasquez in the Grease Pencil stuff and adding like full-on features, not only just for like little small tweaks and here and there. So pretty exciting. All right, I'm over my time. I said I will do 5 questions. Okay, 4 more. Let's see. Fred, do you have any information about procedural textures development and procedural textures consistency inside of Blender for the future development? There is, I can't say that there is anything like planned for real. Like I can't give you a link, a URL, but I just know that there is huge interest in making Blender Texture Painter a lot more useful than what it is now, especially with support for PBR textures and basically using everything that Blender already has, but just taking it to the next level, because Blender already has a viewport, PBR viewport. It already has a brush system. It already has like all kinds of features that you just need a few more things to tidy it up, and then a nice UI. So I see it not too far from the horizon. Okay. Is there a way to get back the 2.7 moving with the mouse and wheel and keep the 2.8 hotkeys? I kind of running out of time now to show you, but there should be a way. If there's not, please, you can ask maybe in the dev talk forums in user feedback, just to ask, because I don't have time to do it right now, but it should be possible to change it. Maybe you can look as a reference how it's implemented in Blender 2.7 for like this, you mean like Alt and then Control for sideways and Shift for up and down, maybe. But maybe you can check there. Hi everyone, is the right place to ask directly? Yes, it is. Okay, 3 more questions. Are there plans for the ambient occlusion now to work without applying ambient occlusion to the whole scene in Eevee? Convert image to a plane. The image to plane is already there, actually. If you go to add an image, you have to enable the add-on first. The add-on, we wanted to make it default, but an image as plane here. If you enable the add-on called import images as plane, which it comes with Blender, you will find it in the add menu, images as planes, and then you can just pick any image that you like, and then you can add it there as a plane. Apparently that image was empty. And about the AO not to work without applying AO to the whole scene, no, I'm not sure. Hi everyone, yes. Hi Pablo, when using string and a number to change the subdivision modifier, I could do that easily in Blender 2.79. Using string and a number to change. Since 2.8 I can only change the subdivisions in object mode. Will it change? No, I didn't notice it actually, but if there is something in the API that changed, you can probably ask. If it looks like a Python thing, so maybe you can ask in the Python forum in the Blender dev talk forums. All right, 5 minutes passed. I will leave it here. I hope I didn't get too many questions and answer. Eek. Yes, I did. Sorry. I hope I can get 2 more questions in the next episode. How did you find this episode? Did you like it? Did you have fun? At the beginning, it didn't look like I had so many things to talk about, but then we always end up looking at saying things. So there, here, I'm gonna just leave this in the background. Then I'm just gonna say hi, just so people see it. A little shout out. But actually there is training going on in the Blender Institute at the moment. Like Tone Rosendale posted some pictures here. Yay, this is the office. This is the Blender Animation Studio here in Amsterdam. And there are 7 students learning from from Matias Mendiola, who is part of the Grease Pencil team, together with Daniel Martinez Lara, both artists, and Antonio Vasquez, and now more recently Charlie Jolie. So 2 devs, 2 artists. Super cool to have Matias here, because they're learning so from first hand. This is the Blender Animation Studio, the actual Blender Institute. Now we used to have issues with like, what is the animation studio, what is the what is the institute, what is the foundation. Now everything has its own room. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Blender today. If you want to see more of this, we do it every week. Just subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you are if you enjoy this episode, and I will find my way here. I'm gonna just put it full screen so I can prepare you for the sweet ending that we always have. I so glad to see you here. I don't know how many were we this today. It's like, how many? 651 max. Insane. 600 people. That's crazy. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you are doing well. Download Blender 2.8. Try it. Give feedback. It's still in beta. There are things that we can change, we can fix, we can anything. Everything could change for the good, for the better. If not, then we will call Gile from Street Fighter, and it will come in 5, 4, 3. Here it is. All right. Okay. Enough talking. I will see you again in the next week for more Blender Today Live.